Our state has gone from being one of the nation's best at preventing COVID spread to one of its worst. Trying to get some buy-in from a more adventurous public, New Mexico has unveiled a three-tiered red to green system that will allow reopenings by county based on case prevalence and positivity rate. The governor spent time on Monday explaining how the new system will hopefully work. Here to talk it out is our Line Opinion panel. I'd like to welcome guest panelist Dave Mulryan, founder of Everybody Votes, just coming off his crazy busy season. Two of our line regulars are also with us this week. One of them is Tom Garrity of the Garrity Group PR, and the other is attorney Sophie Martin. Thank you both for being here. Sophie, I want to start with you. What do you make of the starting of the reopenings right after Thanksgiving? Was this some strategy at work here?
Well, I think the shutdown before Thanksgiving made a lot of sense in that it gave people at least some time to rethink their Thanksgiving plans. But not so much time that they sort of forget that that's something that you need to do. But there is a lot of pressure in our communities to have the ability to, get our lives done. And so I think that this is an acknowledgement of that. But it's also, my sense is that it's an attempt to put in place incentives for communities to take the precautions that the governor has been asking us to take. That there have been periods where there's been more enforcement, less enforcement. But at this point, it seems to me that communities need to be looking within the community saying, who's doing this right, who isn't, what can we do as a community, again, as a region or a county, to reduce the numbers for our citizens.
That's a good point, Dave Mulryan, that Sophie just made. The ball's back in the courts of the local folks.
Right.
It's a very interesting strategy. What do you make of it?
Well, I think it's an interesting strategy, but I think it's also sort of an offshoot of, I think it is fair to say that we've had a failure at the federal level to really guide what we should be doing for this COVID epidemic. And, it has been pushed down to the state level. The governors are, trying a whole array of different types of things. Some of it seems to work. New York State seems to have done very well, although they suddenly seem to have a surge. And I think that one of the things is that, the founders said when the federal government fails, we'll push democracy to the states. And we're seeing that. Yet you have to wonder, can a state itself, bring in these incentives? And it's one that's based on, what red, green, and blue. And it sort of reminds me of when we were having the terror alerts, the same sort of idea. Yet we know what to do. People should wear masks. People should avoid large gatherings. And yet people seem reluctant to do that. And of course, now we've politicized it. Somehow not wearing a mask means that you're a red person and wearing a mask means you're blue. It is insane what's going on. And I think that the governor is, I wouldn't want to be the governor. I wouldn't want to have to make these decisions. But in one way, I agree that her strategy is smart because she's pushing it down to the lowest level, the county and even the mayors, and saying, look, here is a way for you to bring back everything by getting your caseload as low as you can. The question is it going to work? We have no idea, and we'll just have to wait and see. Time will tell. And meanwhile, we are out of hospital beds all over the state and all over the country. It's kind of outrageous when you think about it.
Tom, looking back, the idea of family gatherings is now, pretty much understood to be the main culprit for how COVID has spread. And, we just came off a big Thanksgiving Day weekend. A lot of folks traveled. And they came back, and the governor was asking them to, quarantine and all kinds of other things. What is your sense of what are you hearing about travel particularly and how people approached it? A lot of folks went on planes this past weekend.
Yeah, their travel was something that a lot of folks are starting to do again, some by airplane, other by car. I think that the timing, to Sophie's point from earlier, that, the timing of these announcements is orchestrated to really discourage people from traveling. I know that people, that there were a lot of folks who traveled and a lot of folks who got together in, smaller groups to celebrate Thanksgiving, a lot more connecting by way of the internet through the different video devices to connect with family. So I think everybody is, really kind of pitching into the level that they feel like that they've been impacted by the virus. I think that the red, yellow, green approach that the governor has created is good. It provides a path for different counties. There's also a lot of ambiguity. Two items that I just briefly want to talk about. Please. One is the who's in control at the county level, like in Bernalillo County. Is it Bernalillo County that's in control of enforcing or setting more criteria, or is it the city of Albuquerque? In Roswell, is it Roswell or Chaves County? So a lot of ambiguity there as far as what real power these local municipalities have. And then the second is the red, yellow, green timeline is every other week. And, here we are, we're in the process of getting daily updates on number of infections, numbers of deaths. But we have to wait 14 days to find out if a county is able to come off of the red into the yellow or to the yellow to the green. And so I think that's a flaw in the system that they really need to address. I mean, they have the quick accountability. Why not apply it and reward counties or punish them accordingly if they aren't able to maintain those certain levels?
Sophie, could please pick up on that. Tom makes an interesting point. I mean, on Wednesday, we had 2 looks at the county-by-county map. Los Alamos lost its yellow status, and they're now red, of course, and San Miguel is now yellow, but that's as we tape this. But as Tom mentioned, it's going to be another 2 weeks before we get more county updates. How can folks, run businesses, plan events,
Well, I'm gonna give you the opposite of that,
Please.
right?
Okay.
Which is friends who are business owners, and so of course this is entirely anecdotal off of Facebook and other social media. One of the things that they have talked about struggling with is the lack of predictability. This 2-week period at least gives both residents and businesses this kind of like, okay, so we at least have 2 weeks to work with to plan. It's not every day there could be a change, every 3 or 5 days or whatever it is. We have this horizon where, for instance, restaurants can say, well, we anticipate we're going to be this way for 2 weeks. We can make plans about staffing and purchasing. Parents can say, okay, for 2 weeks, we're not in full lockdown, we're in red, so I can make plans for this next 2 weeks, as opposed to having that kind of whipsaw situation, which I think in many ways might be more challenging.
Meaning if going yellow, red day by day is worse than...
I think so.
I see your point.
Yeah.
Dave, pick up on that as well. It's a challenge. Tom makes a good point here, and Sophie amplified it. It's a very difficult challenge to make planning work. And how is there a better way?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure there's a better way. All I can tell you is that I, for example, stayed closed because, you don't want to get the reputation for like, oh, I went to this place and I got COVID. That to me seems very destructive to whatever brand or business you have long term. But I was lucky in that I didn't have a huge staff, so, I could plan that way. But I think that what Sophie is pointing out, the uncertainty, we are trying to fly a 747 with no radar. We're in the clouds. There's a mountain ahead of us. We don't know. It's like Airport 75, and so I think that, the governor and the politicians, I mean, really, who do we listen to? I mean, do we listen to the mayor? Does the mayor of Roswell tell us like what they're doing? Does the mayor of Albuquerque tell us? I think that the delineation of who is in power and authority here is unclear, and they should clear that up. And again, it goes back to very basic things that Tom and I both work for. What is communicating? How are you communicating? And what is it that you are communicating? Because people tend to follow when they have a good leader. I'm just not sure we're getting the leadership that we need. And it's very unclear.
What's missing in your view in the leadership right now?
I think what's missing is a clear strategy. I think that, people seem to be fumbling around a bit, and, the red, yellow, green is okay, but like all of the points that we just made, how do we decide, if you're a restaurant owner, how do you order food if you don't know what's coming up for 2 weeks? I mean, and when you look at like a couple of Walmarts were closed, and I was thinking, how much perishables do they have to get rid of when you start doing that kind of thing? So, I mean, again, the unknown knowns, to quote the great Donald Rumsfeld, are what's killing everyone.
Wow. I was not quite ready for that person being quoted. But...
Airport 75, Donald Rumsfeld.
I mean, quite a combination of references.
Well done. Let's talk about vaccines here real quick. Tom, I'll start with you. We've got a hearing next week, I believe, next Friday in the U.S. in the Moderna vaccine has its FDA hearing. The UK is pressing ahead quickly. The psychology of the vaccine, what's your sense of how people are taking this? Meaning it's potential side effects, fear, all those things. Is that being managed in your view as you see this rollout starting to happen?
Well, it's being managed. Whether it's being managed well is a whole other discussion.
Good point.
To Dave's point from earlier, we trust those who are closest to us. So, you have the feds who are basically managing this approval process for vaccines.
Mm-hmm.
We have at least 3 different vaccines that I've been keeping track of. So all of a sudden it becomes a branding issue. Do you like product X or product
Right.
Y, and what does your local governor or your local mayor or your local congressperson has to say about that? So I think that there's a lot of room for improvement of just going through the process of what was tested, how were these tested, what are the side effects, and if you have transparency, you'll have people build trust a lot quicker. Mm-hmm. And I just don't see a whole lot of transparency. I see a lot of product, but not a lot of insight as far as how they got from point A to point B.
Yeah. Sophie, it's going to be a tough one. I mean, a lot of folks are out there publicly saying they're just not going to take it. They don't trust these kind of things at all.
Allow me to say now on New Mexico PBS that I join the 3 former presidents in saying that if somebody wants to broadcast me getting my COVID vaccine on TV, I'm in.
Right.
Yeah.
We have seen over the last couple of decades an increase in the U.S. in vaccination. So I'll delicately call it uncertainty. People
Right.
who have followed, unfortunately, in a number of cases, some very bad science in this area. We've seen an increase in dangerous diseases that we thought that we had overcome because of that hesitancy. And this is going to be a big thing for us. I mean, we have states and the federal government really thinking about, does this become mandatory? School systems are having to think about, do we make this a mandatory vaccination situation? It is a minefield. But at the same time now we have people who are saying, no, but I want it. How quickly can I get it?
Right.
And I think that tension there, we hope to get some resolution in that question relatively soon. That decision is largely up to the states, although the CDC has obviously some input into it as well. Here in New Mexico, the expectation is that health workers will start.
Exactly right. Plus, factor in we have a transition in regimes, all going to make it more complicated. Yeah. We're out of time on COVID right now. Tom Udall is next, and then this group is back to talk women in politics.